Hey there, this is Alex over at DuraLabel, and in this video I'm going to be giving you an overview over our ABC text as well as our rich text options and help you determine which one it is you need for your labels. I'm going to go ahead and begin by opening up our Label Designer module, and for this one I'm not really going to be working on an actual label design, more just a showcase of the two font options, so I'll go ahead and just click Create New Label once this opens, and we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and begin in the ABC text option as that's the first in our insert, and that'll go ahead and add that text box, and with that we can move it around if we want. We just have to click off of it really quick as it starts in kind of an editing mode for the actual text itself. If we do want to go back into editing it, we'll just double click on that text. I'll go ahead and highlight this, and I'll go ahead and type out DuraLabel. One thing that you did notice is this is going to extend the text out to the right. If ever you want to fix that, we can always change that by clicking that pin center. What pin center will do is if I do add anything, instead of just extending to the right, it's going to extend to the left as well. For this example, I noticed that I forgot to capitalize the L, so I'll go ahead and just hit backspace and recapitalize that L, which you'll notice that it does stretch it out a little bit on both sides. It's a relatively short word, so it doesn't exactly show it that much, but as you do add additional characters, it will show that a little bit better for you. The next thing that I'll show is actually how to resize this text, so quick ways that you can do that. If we select it again, there is the font size, so if I want to make this just a little bit smaller, I can go ahead and change that from the default 48 over to 32. Alternatively, if I want, I can even control it by going into our object size. So if I want it to only be 2 inches long, I can highlight that length, change that to 2 inches, hit enter. You'll notice it shrinks it a little bit. One thing also to notice, if you do change it that way, the font size will go away, so it won't be following that 32 points anymore, and it'll just alter to how you have it stretched. Another way that you can also resize it is just by clicking on any of these 4 orange boxes in the corners. You can always then drag and drop from there, extending and reshaping the text as needed. I'm going to go ahead and recenter this label just a little bit, and then while we're back here in this edit menu after I've dragged and dropped it, I'll go ahead and show that you can bold the text if you'd like. You can always underline it or italicize it depending on what you want to stylize the text. There's also some different options for formatting for either being more aligned to the left, the right, or by default the center. In order to actually see the differences of that, I'll go ahead and click back into this to edit additional text, and I'll go ahead and add an extra line in here. For this text here, I'll keep it pretty simple by just typing in the word line, and we can see that it's centered with it. If I click back on it, I can then always center that over to the left or over to the right for the actual alignment. I'll put it back in the center for now, but that is one way that you can change that. Just bear in mind that if you make these changes with only one line of text, you're not going to see anything happen. It's only going to happen if you have additional lines by hitting that enter key and adding more. The next thing that I'll show is going to be the actual fixed size for both the width and the height. In order to show that, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and go back into this edit. I'll remove that additional line of text that I added in. That way we're just back to the DuraLabel as you see here. I'll click DuraLabel, check both the width and the height, go back into our edit option, and you'll notice that if I hit space, you're going to see that the DuraLabel text itself shrinks in a little bit and that we aren't actually extending the text anymore. I'll hit backspace and hit enter to add an extra line, and we're going to see that it's still going to stay within this current selection box size that we're working within. So as I do add that extra line like so, you'll see that it still fits within these bounds. So if you need to fit something into kind of a confined space of text, this will be a good way for you to do that. The next thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to delete what I just added in here, and I am going to add an extra ABC text in. This way I can kind of showcase what the vertical text itself is going to look like, so I'll make sure to select the text again, and then in special options I'll click that vertical. You may notice that it does move off the canvas a little. Depending on the length of your text, you might need to move that back where it's needed and visible on the canvas. You can always use any of those resizing features as well that I showed earlier by either using these 4 corners, this object size, or even if you have an idea of what you need for the font size, you can utilize that as well to change the actual size. Next, we're going to go over the rich text. So what I'll do is I'll just begin by cleaning up our canvas a little bit. Select that text, click on that delete option. You can always use the delete key on your keyboard as well if you would like, but I'll go ahead and click on that rich text. You'll see that it shows up as text box, so visually it does look a little different than the ABC text when initially added in. This is really quick just due to the fact that this utilizes text wrap, so this just kind of showcases that. What I'll do to also show that a little bit better is I'll just delete the word box itself and go ahead and retype that in. You'll notice that ultimately after doing so, it will ultimately look the same as it did prior. A couple nuances to go over with the actual rich text option. I'll go ahead and select this box. You don't have the ability to set it to be fixed to the width or the height for the actual size, and you can still, of course, control font size as well as the actual font selection. When it does come to resizing the text itself, the only way that you'll really be able to do that is through this font size. When you drag and drop the box itself, what it's going to do is it's just going to resize the selection box itself. You'll notice when I click and drag this will then become one word where it just says text box. That's mainly due to the fact that when I did go through and edit this, instead of hitting a space, I just typed in the word box to still show that it does text wrap. If I added a space, and it would still do the same text wrap, and this would still look the same. The only main difference is going to be there'd be a space between text and box. The next thing that I'll go over, I'll actually hit the undo. That way I go back into this view here for the text box itself. I'll click into it and I'll edit it. I'm going to go ahead and add an additional line, and for this one I'll keep it pretty straightforward, and I'm actually just going to add another line of text like what's written above. So I'll go and type text out, and you'll see that this does update in the actual edit, but one quirk of it is that because this is going to be selection box dependent for this, the selection box that it's going to be following is the one that is not in this edit menu. It's going to be the one where you have the 4 orange squares on all corners. So when I do click off of this, you'll see this looks about the same as when we initially added it. Even if I initially select this, you'll also notice it looks the same. It's not going to be until I drag the actual box over that we see that additional line that I had just added. So if you're ever working within the rich text and you do notice that it looks like text is getting cut off, that's one thing just to double check. Make sure that that selection box is fitting the size that you need, and make sure that it's not just hiding under there. The next thing that I'm going to be going over is going to be the formatting of rich text. There are a lot of differences between the rich text formatting as well as the ABC formatting, mainly just in terms of how much more you can do within the rich text itself. I'll go ahead and go into edit, and I'm actually going to go move after that last T there, and I'm going to hit enter. I do want this text to be a separate line from this box instead of just being broken up by the word wrapping. So now, even though again it still looks the same, it's going to behave a little bit differently as we make some edits. One thing to make quick note of before we do actually get into the editing for the formatting itself: to do what we're going to be doing, you want to be in the actual text edit to add additional text. If you just have it selected like so, a lot of what we're going to go over is the left and right alignment options, as well as bold, underline, and italicize. You'll notice that when we do select those like you would expect, it is going to apply that to everything. But with the actual rich text, you can go a little bit further and apply it to just highlighted sections. If I highlight this word text itself, I can go over into the font size, and if I want, I can change it to 16 points like so. I can also determine if I want just this text to be on the left. I can come in, highlight where it says box, we can italicize it, we can change the font again, as well as move it over to the right, and even one step further if we would like, we can always go through and I can change that font as well to a different font altogether. So depending on what you need, likely you can use either the ABC text or the rich text. Overall, it's just going to come down to some formatting differences or stylistic choices that might influence your decision more. For example, if you do want to have one word bolded out of a line of text, rich text might work a little better for your needs. But if you're working within more of a confined space for your text needs, that's where you might get away with ABC text a little more. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for watching. For further assistance, visit our website and contact our team for your free lifetime support.